This is the Authority Company Podcast, conversations with leaders who are designing our future. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and Jeff Williams joins me for a conversation on unity, leadership, and what it takes to align people around a shared purpose. Now, Jeff is a civil engineer, former 3-term mayor of Arlington, Texas, and the author of the Unity Blueprint, where he draws on decades of civic, business, and community leadership. Now, as mayor, Jeff helped keep the Texas Rangers in Arlington, led the development of major civic projects, which we'll get into, and guided the city through moments of division and crisis. His work sits at the intersection of systems thinking, character, and human trust, and this conversation gets honest about the cost of leadership when the stakes are high. Jeff Williams, welcome to the podcast. How are you, sir?
Joe, doing great and really excited.
Oh, I'm excited too, because it's something that's really near and dear to my heart, and the idea of talking about stadiums and all the stuff you're doing in your life. But I want to start by sharing where I come from. So I'm originally from the New York City area. And, our stadiums for our sports teams were not in the most high-valued areas. I'm a Jets fan, and the Jets and Giants both played in Giants Stadium, the MetLife Stadium, which is basically a giant parking lot off a highway. My beloved New York Mets played in Flushing, where they were surrounded essentially by, car repair shops and shops. The Yankees in an urban sprawl. The Knicks, obviously had Madison Square in the middle of Midtown. But this idea of stadium districts, which has become a very popular term in real estate for cities. And this is something that Texas has embraced. We're recording this after New Year's, but before this, Kansas City Chiefs announced that they were leaving after 70 plus years, the city of Kansas City, and going to the state of Kansas, so they can build them a stadium district where they can have all these amenities around the stadium. So for folks not familiar with this world, something that you are fully been invested in over the course of the last 20, 25 years, why are stadium districts I don't want to say the next best thing, because they're really the now thing. Tell me more about that.
Well, it's pretty exciting here in Arlington, Texas, because we recognize that when people come to a football game, they would love to go out to eat beforehand, or perhaps to go into an entertainment complex after the game to see the post-game shows and to be able to socialize and then maybe even to make a day of it and to come and shop and experience other things. We have an amusement park here. And just to orient the people to Arlington, we are home to the Dallas Cowboys. We are home to the Major League Baseball's Texas Rangers. We also have one of the largest amusement parks in Six Flags Over Texas that is here. And then we have now added Texas Live, which is the largest entertainment complex outside of Vegas here. And it's an amazing thing, and you'd have to see it. But then probably the crown jewel that we have in this district is the Arlington version of the National Medal of Honor Museum. It's amazing that we have a national museum like that. And so it adds a whole nother dimension. And so we now have become what I believe the destination between Orlando and Vegas.
Wow. It's amazing. And so for folks that are just grew up like me, brass tacks of just go to the game and leave, maybe go, 20 minutes early and tailgate. But this idea of making a whole day of it and essentially building your economy because of the fact that people are coming in, spending day, you're employing a lot of people in jobs. I mean, it's one of those things where if you're not doing it, you're more than likely, like what happened with the Chiefs, you're going to lose that team because people want this sort of stadium district feel where it's a one-stop shop for all.
That's right, Joe. And it's great for business. It's OPM. It's bringing in other people's money. And man, that is an awesome thing, because we have had so many of our small businesses to take advantage of the people coming into town. And, we've had restaurants, we've had our shops and businesses that have exploded because of people coming into the games that are doing business here.
And a lot of this happened during your watch as obviously a 3-term mayor of the city of Arlington. For folks like me from the Northeast, we know of Arlington we know where obviously the Rangers have played in Arlington for many, many years. But what is it about Arlington and its attraction and the fact that you could have all of these things in that city?
Well, we are in an amazing location in the center of the country. We are also right in the middle between Dallas and Fort Worth, and we are at the southern gateway to the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, which is one of the top airports in the world. So what an opportunity we have had to be able to grow, and our citizens love the fact that they're able to take advantage of all this entertainment. But even more importantly, we're able to bring dollars in that to where our businesses can flourish, and our city can also increase its tax revenue so that, again, we're using OPM, other people's money, to help strengthen our neighborhoods and our streets. So it has been a uniting factor here in our city. And I think that has been the real key of why we have been able to bring in so many different attractions, is because our citizens have come together and they understand the importance. And it has been a great project for all of us to be working on to make a difference here in our community.
That's so cool. And it's, so for an outsider, Arlington has always been like sort of the little brother to Dallas, and the fact that Arlington's exploded, I mean, is that competition's no longer there, right? I mean, you guys are pretty much equals in terms of like the amount of people that want to be in this city, live in the city, work in the city, and obviously you've seen the growth of the city.
Well, as a matter of fact, we are drawing around 16 million visitors a year, which is more than double what Dallas draws, to give you an idea. And of course, the real key for us, again, has been the fact that our people are willing to work together. And that was the key when we brought the National Medal of Honor Museum here to our city. That was a 20-city competition. And you're probably asking yourself, why didn't it go to Washington, D.C.? Well, it was going to take 20 years to get it built in DC. And we were able to share with them that we can get it done in 3 years here in our community.
Wow.
And it worked. And we now have a national museum, which so many of them are in DC, but it's right here in Arlington. And it's been very exciting to see that open, a world-class museum, just again to add and attract people, but also to add depth to our community.
There is something in the water there in Texas about construction because my aforementioned MetLife Stadium that my Jets play in. I say this. I have friends at the Jets. It's the ugliest stadium in the NFL. Yet it costs more to build than Jerry World in Arlington. There, the Cowboys Stadium, and I'm always shocked by that. And I know that obviously in New York, New Jersey, unions and stuff costs a little more. But the fact that you guys were able to build something like that for less than what we paid for in our stadium is just a drab gray. And I know you're going to say anything about MetLife Stadium, but the fact that you've built something for little cost so fast, I should say little cost, I said a lot of cost, but like, in terms of what other people are spending for stadiums, the construction in your state and your city it's just something that is pretty remarkable from an outsider's perspective.
Well, Joe, it's just an insider position here. I was the civil engineer for AT&T Stadium for the Cowboys here, and it was a great day when we heard that there was not going to be a roof on the New York Stadium. And we said, hey, we have a clear path now to where we will have one of the top stadiums that is really weatherproof because we have the roof on it, we have heating and air conditioning, and so whatever the weather is, we're prepared for it. And then even I was amused when SoFi actually hosted the national championship for college football here a few years ago, and they had a torrential downpour, and all of the fans got wet. They said they were weatherproof, but they're not. And so we have really one of the top special event centers in the world, and with the Cowboy Stadium. And in fact, Arlington was actually touted by the Washington Post as it's become the sports capital of the nation. But we have something even bigger coming, and that is that we have FIFA bringing the World Cup here to Arlington here this year. And we are so excited about that because suddenly that is going to put Arlington, Texas on the international stage. And that is off the charts. So we are going to have other people's money, OPM, coming from all over the world to help us, help our businesses, and help our community to be even better.
Yeah, don't get me started on them not putting a roof on MetLife Stadium. I'll never understand that. But I will say, in terms of the FIFA, we are MetLife is hosting the championship game, for the World Cup. But you guys, you guys got a couple games there. I'm sure you do quite well there.
Joe, to be specific, you have one game. We have 9.
Yes. But we got the big game. We got the big game. No, you're doing great, Jeff. So to do all this and to accomplish all this, requires one word that you've basically kind of hung your hat on, and that's unity. And you open the book saying unity beats individual brilliance. Tell me how that revelation came to you, because I think we live in a world now, Jeff, as you know, we tout and we make millionaires sort of like our gods. Like, we don't have royalty in the United States, but like the rich and powerful are our royalty, and they're often rich and royal because they basically did it, quote unquote, on their own, or their name was on the building of something or what have you. Tell me about this idea of unity over individual brilliance.
But Joe, the world has become much more complicated. We're at the beginning of a technology revolution like the world has never seen. We have society changes that take place every few months. And trying to go it alone there really limits the potential for what you can get done. In fact, I love the quote from Margaret Mead that says, "It's amazing what a few committed citizens can do and making a difference in the world." Well, I love to change that. It's amazing what a few thousand people can do when they work together. And so consequently, I love to go out and include people in planning and to value them. And in fact, it is amazing what can be accomplished when you have the trust of the people and they value you. In fact, I see that time and time again. That is what people are looking for. And I have seen a hunger for unity. And I've experienced more success because of developing and making unity happen than I've ever done individually. And so I have grown to really value unity, but I also think it is definitely uh, the wave of the future. And in fact, I talk to people all the time now that are yearning for unity. In fact, Forbes actually told me, they said that people are yearning for unity here in America, but they're not doing anything about it to create unity. Well, that's the purpose of the book, the Unity Blueprint that I've written. It's it is a plan for how you can build unity, starting with your family, in your nonprofits that you may be working in, your organizations, but then in business. In fact, how much division and dissension do we see in our businesses today? It's really a problem because it keeps us from being productive and making a difference.
Wow. And so I'm curious, because you're obviously a successful man, done a lot in the great state of Texas, but I'm sure maybe your own brilliance got in the way of potentially, embracing unity. Was there a time in your life where you were like, I can't do this alone, or I'm not the lone answer. I I for one can fix this. And did unity save you from falling into those traps?
It has many times, but probably the one that I think the people can really relate to is that I was recruited to serve as mayor here in Arlington. And what I was faced with, and what our city was faced with, is that we had all of the cities around us wanting to take the Texas Rangers and move them to their city. Our lease was running out on our stadium, and they were going to build a retractable roof ballpark for them. And if we had lost the Rangers, it would have been a huge economic devastation, but also it would have hurt the morale of our city. We already had seen what had happened when Cowboy Stadium left Irving and came to Arlington. It really hurt that community. And so that was a challenge. But then also, we had not been recruiting businesses and jobs for quite some time. And we also were becoming an international city, and people weren't talking. We were kind of losing that can-do spirit that had made Arlington so great. And so I said, there is no way that I can tackle this alone. And my wife and I prayed a lot before we decided that we would run for mayor and tackle this challenge. But we felt a calling, but even more importantly, we had people that said, we will hang with you, Jeff. We will help. Well, to tackle these challenges, I needed an army. We needed to unify our citizens to get behind the initiatives that we had. And so we started with a plan. And of course, it was my plan. And you talk about the ego that can come into leaders. Well, I think sometimes there's such an ego when someone gets promoted to a CEO or gets elected to an office, they don't even formulate a plan. They just react. They just go to their meetings and off the cuff do things. I believe that one of the most important things is developing a plan and then getting feedback from your employees or your stakeholders. And then the magic happens then, because suddenly that my plan turns into our plan and everybody's ready to work on it. So that's one of the keys there. There's many more, but that's one of the keys there, Joe, without a doubt.
If you don't mind indulging me a little bit, because we started this conversation talking about this idea of like all of these professional teams want to build stadiums with districts and have all this. But there has been this argument, and it's been ugly, as you've probably know, Jeff, about this idea of building stadiums with tax-funded funds, and building it for billionaires. Because as we all know, all of these, they say it's the most exclusive country club in the world, owning a professional sports franchise. Why are cities and counties and states the taxpayers paying for these stadiums? What is the argument to that, Jeff? And I understand, obviously it's worked out very well in Texas. There are some instances where it has not. Tell me about this idea about funding these stadiums and these projects.
Joe, it's a basic fundamental that I think people miss. Their cities are subject to inflation. It costs them more to pick up the trash each and every year. It costs them more to fix the roads, the rising construction cost, even on constructing our water lines and our sewer lines. And that gets lost. So if we don't invest in tourism, then we are missing out. We've got to invest our tax dollars, and tourism is one of the best. In fact, here in Texas, for every dollar we invest, we get $5 back. And so that is the reason why, because we then are able to take those dollars we make from tourism and truly spend the money on strengthening our neighborhoods, fixing our roads, creating new parks, and create some really great things. And in fact, the formula is bringing in businesses and increasing tourism equals better city services and lower taxes. So if you're not investing tax dollars in the right way, how are you going to keep up with inflation? And there's two main ways for cities to be able to make that up, and that is through tourism and bringing in business. It's just that simple. Now, you've got to be wise in how you do it. And of course, we here in Arlington, for example, on Cowboy Stadium, we invested $350 million and we had it capped. And Jerry Jones then turned around and spent another $900 million on top of that to build that stadium. And you can say that, well, I don't want to give money we're not giving, we're investing money with a billionaire. Well, guess what? You're leaving out part of the picture. There is a reason they are billionaires. They are smart people and would you want to invest in somebody who doesn't have a great track record of success? We invested with one of the top sports franchises in America, and it has paid off in huge dividends. Same thing with the Texas Rangers. The same type of thing happened for us. We invested $500 million on that project and had it capped. However, the Rangers invested $700 million. Yeah. But guess what else has happened? It isn't just a stadium. It's a special event center too. We're having 300 events in each one of those now. So you can't say that it only happens for 8 or 9 games or 81 games. It's happening every day. It's an awesome thing. And we've got to get the message out, because I think so many have gotten the wrong message there in how to take care of tourism and creating jobs.
And there is some anecdotes. Obviously, I'm not an expert in this, but there are anecdotes where you see where the stadiums are completely funded by the taxpayers. And the case in Texas, obviously different than most. Forgive me, I'm wrong, but I believe the Kansas project is all publicly funded. So I think that's where you get people annoyed by it. And I'm just curious, while you were in the middle of getting this going, and I know obviously you were in competition with other cities, were there people in Arlington who were like, you know what, Jeff, we had a good run with the Rangers. If they decide to go, if they won't go far, it's okay. There's no need to give these billionaires half a billion to build a stadium. Did you have some of that to deal with internally?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why we've got to build unity. You've got to have a plan on how you get the word out and why. Why are we doing this? And that's always important. And so, again, making a plan so that that can happen, and then recruiting people to help get the word out. And then it is amazing when you align people with a purpose. Magic again happens because we all are looking for that way that we can give back. And they may not even realize it, but God made us to live in community and to do good things for other people. And even the biggest introvert I've seen, once you get them involved on something they're passionate about, it is amazing what they will do.
That's so cool. And so in terms of unity, when you're dealing with the aforementioned billionaire owners, the civic leaders, and the everyday citizens, when you've got that mishmash, that soup, what surprised you the most over the course of those all those boxes you checked off and all the accomplishments? What surprised you most when it came to unifying those three sects, which, as you know, Jeff, all have different wants and needs? Tell me about that.
Well, I can tell you it's pretty easy. It is amazing where ideas come from. And it goes back to valuing people. One of the big surprises for me is when I first came into office, we had a fifth grader to make the suggestion that we should be we have a huge General Motors plant here, by the way, too, in our city that manufactures full-size SUVs. Well, this fifth grader said that we ought to put a GPS locator on the front of every car, and it would actually locate the potholes and move the car away from the potholes. And then it would send the location of the potholes directly to the mayor's office so he'd get them fixed. Well, I laughed, but then it made me think that he's onto something here, because the GPS locator, we all have that on us, and that's our phone. And if we created an app that we could literally, when we're at the pothole, that we just pushed a button and it sent it to the city hall, but not to the mayor's office, but to the pothole repair crew, then we could do something really special. And I created 2 pothole repair crews that go out every day.
Wow.
And our citizens love it, and we get them repaired within 3 days of when they report it. So they're not looking at that same pothole all the time. And it also helps extend the life of our streets. And it all came from a fifth grader. What if I discounted where that came from? We would have missed out on one of the great things that happened. But guess what? When you take care of people's needs, you're starting to build unity because you show you care for them. Wow. And that's such an important thing in our businesses right now, too, that we show we care for our employees. They're looking for that. In fact, again, I mentioned it earlier in our show here that people are looking for leaders that they can trust and that value them. And that is really the core of starting with building unity. But I cannot believe all of the success that we've had whenever we work that. But when we have failures, Joe, and we've been working together, well, we have somebody to cry with, and we have each other to pick each other up and to move on. So it's even in defeat, we're better off rather than being alone. And by the way, you mentioned it earlier, when you're going on something alone and, hey, I'm ego driven, I'm going to make it happen. Well, when you reach that success and you're on the top of that mountain, you look around and there's nobody there with you to celebrate. What fun is that?
Alone, yeah.
But man, it's so much more fun to be able to celebrate with others, but also even to be able to cry with others when you didn't make it.
That's great. Going back to the point where you mentioned the fifth grader with the idea about the GPS locator for the potholes, and you write about this in the book about leaders misunderstanding listening versus appeasing. Because I think for many, no disrespect to you politicians, Jeff, a lot of times, probably most of the time, you're just appeasing. You're just like, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll do our best to get that done, and we'll see whatever happens. And I know there's probably like a really kind of fine line between the two about listening and appeasing. But what do you think leaders get wrong or misunderstand about, listening versus appeasing?
Well, you need to be listening to understand instead of listening to respond. Many times when you're sitting there listening to a citizen, you do have that tendency that, hey, what am I going to say to them? But don't stop and sit there and think, hey, let me listen to what they're saying. And there are a lot of times where their ideas are way off base, And you should have studied up enough to where you can recognize that, but don't discourage them. Encourage them to come back with other ideas. And that has been a really great thing for me, is that it is spurred others on to want to find an idea. And then truly you need to be looking all the time for ideas to help shape a vision. You need to be looking ahead. I love that quote from Wayne Gretzky where it says you need to be looking at where the puck is going to be, not where it's at. And as leaders, we need to be looking ahead. We need to be really working on that vision. Well, it's not all just our vision. We are so much better when we are listening to others and hearing what is happening and consulting experts and finding out more and being lifelong learners. It's such an important thing. And then it's amazing the friendships that have been forged too when we work together on projects together.
Wow, that's great. And something that you write about and talk about is something that I'm very passionate about. That's the word momentum. Tell me about like the momentum that you needed to pull off everything you did, but also what could have stopped it? Because I think a lot of times people get stuck in the weeds of like, wait a minute, things are going too fast. Let's stop and let's have a meeting about this thing. Tell me about what kills momentum faster than anything.
Well, without a doubt, not having people behind it. And the other thing that I think is so key, Joe, and you hit on it, you have to have a sense of urgency so that you can keep that momentum going. So many times things take too long, and you may have somebody in a key position to retire or to be in a car wreck and be disabled for a while, or political climates to change. And so when you have aligned the people together, you need to move and keep that momentum going. Literally, I knew that I did not have long to serve. I served 3 terms. I termed out with our term limits. And so I knew that we had a lot to get done and I couldn't do it on my own. We needed other people to be able to move out and get all we did done so that we truly could ensure the future of our community. And so we spread that message, and other people had a sense of urgency. But here's the key point for a leader, is that we need to be the bridge that takes people to their purpose. We don't need to be a barrier. And it's so important that we recognize that. And isn't it awesome when we can build that bridge that can take literally thousands of people across that bridge to actually accomplish a purpose to do good? It's an amazing thing when that is accomplished.
What does unity look like in practice if a leader is sort of like drinking the Kool-Aid? Like they've read your book, they understand the importance of unity in daily practice. Like what is there a tangible way to explain what unity might look like, Jeff?
Well, I think the leader himself or herself needs to look inside, and they need to establish character values to begin with. And that has been really reinforced because the mission of the National Medal of Honor Museum is to inspire Americans to adopt the character values of integrity, sacrifice, courage, commitment, citizenship, and patriotism. And it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, what ethnicity you are, everyone gets that message. It's been so unifying to see how people have gotten behind that message at the Medal of Honor Museum. And then it fed right into something that happened to me when I was in my late 20s. And I had a client that I thought the world of, but yet there were a lot of things missing from his family and actually the way he did business. And it made me think, well, what kind of businessman do I want to be? What kind of husband do I want to be? What kind of father do I want to be? And literally it caused my wife and I to sit there and think about, what are the character values we want to adopt? What are the core values that we need to be successful? And it made a big difference in my business life, and then ultimately led to me believing in unity more than ever because of the way I value people. So a leader has got to truly be authentic, and that's important that the leader actually truly value the people. People can tell if you don't. And so you've got to truly have the character values, build the authenticity that you do value people, and then you got to work on a plan. But that plan means you got to research, you got to study, you got to work. It's all part of it. And then as you build that plan, truly take it to the people and recruit them, because you're not a leader, people are following.
Wow. All right, let me devil's advocate a little bit. It's a role I love to play every once in a while, Jeff. And
Sure,
so
Joe.
we live in a world of views, likes, followers. For someone to be deemed successful, they have to have a following. For people to be to succeed in politics, they need to create a sort of attraction to a constituency. How does being a uniter and putting unity first help in that when we're all fighting for the clicks and for the eyeballs? Because some people may see this, Jeff, be like, yeah, I like what Jeff is saying, but if I'm running for office and I'm just giving everyone else the credit, no one's going to vote for me. So tell me about how people can sort of live in a world of unity, but also stand out so that they can succeed and try whatever things they want to do.
Well, I think we are at a time now where people are yearning for unity. I've seen that, and I think that the movement has begun, and I think we have a time for that cycle to change. But the true measure of success is how much you get done and what you do for other people. And so you are not going to accomplish much if you're alone, and it is fleeting success. In fact, as a businessman that has been in the same city for decades, I've seen so many businesses to come up and do great things for 2 or 3 years and then flame out because they only had the one person. They were not able to build a team. And then, in fact, the profession I'm in engineering, is built on teamwork. It's such a critical thing to be building a team and bringing people together. You even look at every corporate organization, even though we have so much division and dissension, the corporations are very concerned about making sure that they are able to keep their employees productive and not fighting with each other all the time, but yet thinking about how they can help their company and find solutions to problems instead of sitting there thinking about how much they hate the person in the office next door, and that, which is totally unproductive. And then in addition to that, they're unhappy. Well, in a company that actually values its employees and actually gets their input from them and studies and plans and so forth, you can eliminate so much of this dissension. All of it? No. And is it mean that you don't have any disagreements? No, but it means you have respect and you're not going to go home mad and thinking about how you can get back at your employee the next day. Instead, you're willing to work together and to make a difference, and you're seeing the fruits of your labor. You're seeing success, your company's successful, so then you're able to make more money, and then you're able to take care of your family, and you're sleeping at night, and you're not worrying about all of that. So it is truly, from a guy who spent his career in building teamwork and having success, and yes, having failures, that you are going to be so much more successful when you include people and build unity.
That's great. That's awesome. And by training, you're an engineer. We have an engineering firm, and a good friend of mine is an engineer. And I feel like if there's one degree, if a young person would say, like, pursue engineering, because there's something about you people that do engineering that if you're able to master like the soft skills, there's nothing holding you back in your career being a trained engineer. Tell me about how your background is essentially sort of like your granite, like your what you're able to stand on and what you learn so much that you're able to accomplish so much as an elected official, but also accomplish much as a business professional.
Well, it's kind of interesting. When you go into engineering, even in the universities, they will all divide you into teams and give you projects to work on because they recognize the importance of several minds thinking together to create something special. So teamwork is the beginning of success, but then also problem solving and to learn the problem solving. But we have to develop project budgets. We have to sell our projects to the public, or I do as a civil engineer. When I'm working on a city park or when we were working on AT&T Stadium, as a civil engineer, I had to sell both the city council and our citizens on what we were designing and how we were designing it. But then you go on, it might be a shopping center that's a building block. It may be a church that's a building block, schools, universities. all of them are special places that create great things. And so it gives you incredible job satisfaction. But in doing all of that, you do learn how to deal with people. You do learn how to develop schedules, to develop that sense of urgency, because we all know the longer it takes to build something, the more it costs. And so all of that helped to translate into me serving as mayor. It helped a lot. Now, there were things that I didn't know much about, and one of them was animal services. I love animals, but however, I had no idea how much there was to do in animal services, and that was something that I left to others to do when I was mayor. But it was very rewarding to see that my engineering background helped me when I was serving as a public servant, but then also being a business owner. Going into public service was hugely valuable. And that is what we need more of. There are very few business people that are actually serving as elected officials. We need more of that business knowledge in as elected officials, because it's so important that we're able to manage the money and invest the tax dollars in the right way.
That's great. Awesome. Well, thank you for indulging me on that. And lastly, when people finish the book, Jeff, what behavior do you hope they stop immediately? Like, yeah, obviously when someone reads a book like this, there's a lot they could take from it. What would you like someone to take away from it the second that book closes?
That they have an opportunity to make change, and that they have an opportunity to build unity, and that anyone can do it. And of course, for me, I can tell you that our kindness campaign that we developed here made all the difference, because people were then open to talking to other people here in our international city. But also something I think that is missing in the world that I've adopted as a core value, a very important core value, is forgiveness. And I think that we've got to understand that people are going to let us down. And yet some of my best friends, if I didn't forgive them, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to be in business with them, or I wouldn't have the opportunity to go on that great trip to Europe with them, or for them to give me incredible advice there through it. We can't write off people just because we have a disagreement there. And I think that's very important. But we all need a purpose. And so consequently, I think teaming together with others to attack a purpose that we are passionate for is so important and so rewarding. And so that's why I wrote the Unity Blueprint. It is a plan for being able to move people ahead there to build unity and have so much success and satisfaction that even when failure hits, you're not alone.
It's awesome. He is W. Jeff Williams. The book, The Unity Blueprint, Aligning People and Purpose for Lifelong Success. Jeff, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I hope people will come to my website, wjeffwilliams.com. My book, The Unity Blueprint, is available on Amazon, and it's doing well. It's a bestseller.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Joe.
And that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to find out more information about Jeff and our other amazing authors, go to theauthoritycompany.com.